Lyra and Kale lived on the bustling colony of Viridian 7, a place where humans and aliens coexisted in crowded neighborhoods filled with bright lights, floating markets, and the hum of starships overhead. The colony was alive. Yet for the two siblings, life had grown small, lonely, and heavy. Their stepfather, Dravok, an alien with tall, angular features and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through a person, had grown impatient with them. It all began, he said, with their eating. Humans were naturally hearty eaters, and Lyra and Kale loved food in ways that Dravok did not understand. They laughed over breakfast, ate slowly, savoring every bite, and always went back for seconds. Dravok, a creature who prized efficiency, moderation, and discipline above all else, saw this as weakness. "You are wasting my time and my food," Dravok shouted one morning. His voice carried through the small apartment like a sharp blade. "A family cannot survive if you cannot control yourselves." Lyra, only 12 but stubborn and proud, met his gaze. "We are just hungry," she said softly, holding her plate close. Kyle, 10, tried to hide a nervous smile behind his hands. Dravok's expression darkened. "Hunger is no excuse for weakness. You are too human," he said, shaking his head. "Perhaps it is time you find a place more suited to your kind." The words landed heavier than a starship falling from orbit. Lyra's stomach twisted, not from hunger but from the sting of rejection. Kale's eyes grew wide. "What do you mean?" he whispered. But Dravok had already turned away. That night, the siblings sat on the edge of their small bunk bed, listening to the quiet hum of the colony outside. The other families were alive with chatter and laughter while they felt abandoned, as though they had been invisible all along. I don't understand," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "Did we do something wrong?" Kale shook his head, hugging his knees. "We just ate too much?" He sounded both childish and broken. Lyra pressed a hand to her chest. "It's not just about food. He doesn't see us as important. He doesn't see us as family." The siblings fell asleep with heavy hearts, the room cold and silent without the warmth of love they longed for. The next morning, Dravok's absence was final. There was no shouting, no angry farewell. His things were gone, leaving only a small note written in his jagged handwriting: "Find your own way. Do not return." Lyra clutched the paper in her hands, feeling the weight of every word. Kyle sat next to her, silent, staring at the floor. They had no money, no adult to turn to. Only each other in the confusing expanse of the colony. "What do we do now?" Kale asked finally, his voice small. Lyra took a deep breath, trying to find strength in herself. "We survive. We always have. And maybe we find someone who actually cares about us." Kale looked up, eyes wide. "Someone like a real father?" Lyra nodded. "Maybe. I've heard stories of humans who travel between colonies helping children who have no one. People call them fathers even if they are not related by blood." Kyle tilted his head. "A real human father? Here?" Lyra shrugged. "I don't know, but maybe it's worth trying." With a plan forming, they decided to leave the apartment that very day. They packed their few belongings, some clothes, a small hollow device that played music, and a bag of food for the journey. Though the colony was crowded and full of danger for unaccompanied children, the siblings felt a spark of hope they hadn't known in months. As they stepped outside, the morning sun glinting off the colony's metal towers, the world felt both frightening and alive. Alien merchants called out, hovering drones whirred overhead, and distant ships left trails of blue light across the sky. Lyra took Kale's hand. "We stick together. No matter what," she said. Kale nodded. No matter what. Their first steps were tentative. The streets of Viridian 7 were unfamiliar, even though they had walked them countless times with Dravok. Now they saw everything through new eyes. Faces passing without recognition, creatures moving with purpose, the smells of strange foods and machines. It was overwhelming, yet exciting. As the day wore on, Lyra and Kale began to discover small ways to survive. They traded a few coins for food at a market stall, learning quickly which vendors were kind and which were harsh. They hid when security drones flew by, hearts pounding. And perhaps most importantly, they learned to rely on each other, forming a silent pact. No one would hurt them as long as they stayed together. That evening, they found shelter in the shadow of an abandoned transport hub. They ate quietly, sharing a small ration of food. Kale poked at the meal nervously. "Do you think the human father is real?" Lyra looked at him, her face lit by the dim glow of a nearby lamp. "I have to believe." "He is. If we don't believe, then what do we have?" Kale nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "Then we believe." Outside, the city hummed on, unaware of the two children who had chosen a new path. Lyra and Kale huddled together, hearts beating with equal parts fear and hope. They were alone, yes, but for the first time, they felt the possibility of something better, something real. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, a human was traveling between colonies, seeking children in need. Unseen, he listened to the whispers of the stars, ready to find Lyra and Kale, and perhaps become the father they had always needed. The morning light of Viridian 7 filtered through the metal towers, painting long shadows across the crowded streets. Lyra and Kale stepped out from their hiding spot near the abandoned transport hub. The city was alive again, oblivious to the small pair of human-alien children navigating its labyrinth of alleys and floating platforms. They had no map, no guide, only a plan: find the legendary human father. It sounded impossible, but Lyra clung to the thought like a lifeline. Kale shuffled nervously beside her, glancing at the market stalls and hovering drones as if expecting danger at every corner. Their first challenge came quickly. A pack of scavenger drones designed to catch runaway or unlicensed citizens spotted them. The drones' red eyes glowed as they hovered closer, emitting low mechanical whines. Lyra grabbed Kale's hand. "Run!" she shouted. They sprinted, through the crowded streets, slipping past merchants and dodging hovering carts. Kale stumbled, nearly falling into a puddle of alien oil. Lyra pulled him up, whispering urgently, "Keep moving." After what felt like hours, they ducked into a narrow side alley. The drones buzzed past without noticing them. Both were panting, heavily, their small bodies shaking from adrenaline. "We can't stay in the city," Kyle said, still catching his breath. "They'll keep looking for us." Lyra nodded, scanning the horizon. "We need to leave, out of the city, out into the outskirts. That's where travelers pass. Maybe someone can help us." The outskirts were dangerous. Wastes of metal and rock stretched for miles beyond the city, with hidden creatures and unstable terrain. Lyra led Kyle carefully, remembering stories. She had heard about children who had survived the wilderness. They would need cunning, patience, and courage. As they walked, Kale noticed a flickering light in the distance, like a tiny star hovering low to the ground. "Do you see that?" he asked. Lyra squinted. "It's probably a traveler's beacon. Maybe someone who can help." They approached cautiously, hiding behind rocks and debris. The light belonged to a small hovering craft, patched together but sturdy, with faint blue energy lines tracing its edges. A figure stood near it, tall and human, adjusting controls. Lyra's heart skipped. This had to be him, the human father. Before they could step forward, a sudden sound froze them in place. From the shadowed rocks nearby, a creature with long legs, sharp claws, and glinting eyes stepped into view. It sniffed the air, growling low. Kale froze, fear rooting him to the ground. "Lyra," he whispered. Lyra took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "We can do this. Remember everything we learned." She picked up a small rock and tossed it far to the side. The creature turned its attention, giving them a chance to move. They ran toward the craft, but the creature was fast. Just as it lunged, the human turned sharply, raising a device that emitted a bright pulse of light. The creature screeched and retreated, vanishing into the shadows. Lyra and Kale stood, trembling, staring at the human. He walked toward them slowly, hands open in peace. "You're safe now," he said in a calm, gentle voice. I'm Captain Elias. Who are you? Lyra swallowed, trying to steady her voice. I'm Lyra, and this is my brother Cale. Our stepfather left us. Elias's eyes softened. I see. That's not easy, but you're safe with me, at least for now. Cale blinked, amazed. You're real? A real human father? Elias chuckled. I'm as real as anyone can be. And yes, I help children who have no one. Sometimes being a father isn't about blood, it's about care, guidance, and protection. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in months. Could this stranger really become the father they had dreamed of? Elias motioned them aboard the craft. Inside, the space was compact but clean, with soft lights and enough supplies for long journeys. He offered them food and water. The siblings hesitated, then accepted, the simple act of eating together feeling like the first true family moment they had shared in years. As they ate, Elias explained his travels. He visited colonies, helping children who had been abandoned, teaching them survival skills and sometimes reuniting them with lost families. Lyra and Cale listened, wide-eyed, imagining a future where they were safe and cared for. You'll need to learn quickly, Elias said, serious now. The galaxy is vast and not always kind. I'll face dangers, make tough decisions, and the stars stretched endlessly outside the craft, glittering like scattered jewels across the black sky. Lyra and Kyle sat side by side, their eyes wide with wonder. Though they had left the dangers of Viridian 7 behind, the vastness of space was a new kind of challenge, one that made them feel both tiny and alive. Captain Elias guided the ship with practiced ease, glancing back at the children from time to time. His calm demeanor made them feel secure, yet they could sense that life aboard the ship would not be easy. Before we go any further, Elias said, his voice gentle but firm, I need to understand who you are and what you're capable of. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? Elias stopped at a navigation console, tapping a few buttons. Out here in space, danger can appear without warning. You need skills, awareness, and courage. I can teach you, but first I must know what I'm working with. Kyle shuffled nervously. Skills? What skills? Elias smiled. Survival, problem-solving, quick thinking. Even small children can learn. Let's start with something simple. He handed each of them a small device, a hollow map of the surrounding sector. Find a safe path through this asteroid field. Don't worry if it seems tricky. It's meant to teach you how to plan and think ahead. Lyra and Cale exchanged nervous glances. The map glowed softly, showing moving asteroids that shifted unpredictably. Cale's small fingers trembled as he traced a path. I think, if we go this way, then turn right here. Elias watched quietly, occasionally nodding. Good. And if an asteroid suddenly shifts? Lyra's eyes widened. We move quickly and adjust? Exactly, Elias said. Adaptability is key. You'll face many situations like this. In space, you can't always control what happens, but you can control how you respond. After several attempts, the children successfully navigated the simulated field. Elias clapped once sharply, and the lights of the holomap flickered to signal success. Well done, he said. This is just the beginning. You both have potential, but there's more to learn. For the next few hours, Elias guided them through exercises. They learned to identify energy signals from nearby ships, basic repairs for the craft, and even how to ration supplies efficiently. Each lesson was paired with stories from Elias's own life, of times he had been lost, abandoned, or tested by the vast universe. You see, Elias said during a break, humans have a special strength. It's not muscle, speed, or even size. It's our ability to think, to adapt, to care for others, even when everything seems lost. That is what makes us resilient. Lyra felt a spark of understanding. She had always been told she was weak because she ate too much, because she was small. But now, listening to Elias, she realized that being human and caring was a strength in itself. Cale, quiet for most of the lessons, suddenly looked up. Do you really think we can survive out here? Alone? Elias smiled, his eyes soft. Not alone, not ever. You have each other and now you have me, but even without me, humans have survived against impossible odds. That's why I trust you. The evening brought a quiet lull. The craft floated past glowing nebulae, painting the walls with colors that shifted from gold to violet. Lyra leaned against Cale, who had his small hand in hers. Both felt a growing bond, not just with each other, but with Elias, the human, who had chosen to guide them. But space was not without danger. A sudden alert sounded and red lights flashed across the cockpit. Elias's expression sharpened. "Children," he said calmly, "we have company. Hostile scouts, likely from the Saurian sector, are approaching. They're curious, and curiosity out here can be deadly." Lyra felt her stomach twist, but Elias reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm, watch, learn, and remember your training." The scouts approached, small, agile ships with jagged exteriors. Elias guided the craft through evasive maneuvers, while the children watched and calculated potential paths. Each adjustment reminded them of the holomap exercises, and slowly they began to understand the importance of quick thinking. "Lyra," Elias said, pointing to a gap between two asteroids. "Plot the path. Kyle, monitor the energy signals. Ready?" The siblings nodded, hearts pounding. Lyra traced the course carefully while Kyle called out readings. Together, under Elias's guidance, they steered the craft through the dangerous field. The scouts gave chase, but eventually lost interest, disappearing into the darkness of space. The siblings exhaled, relief washing over them. Lyra looked at Elias with awe. "We did it." "You did it," he corrected gently. "I only guided you. Never forget that you are capable." The rest of the night was quiet, filled with soft hums of the ship's engines. Lyra and Cale found themselves reflecting on the day's lessons. They were learning not just about survival, but about trust, courage, and the strange strength of being human. Elias watched them from the cockpit, thinking quietly. These children, abandoned and misunderstood, were already showing the resilience he had seen in countless humans across the galaxy. They would face more challenges, but they were not alone. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Before sleep, Lyra whispered to Cale, "Do you think he really can be our father?" Cale's eyes were wide with hope. "I think he already is." Elias, seated nearby, smiled silently. He didn't need to speak. Actions, after all, often spoke louder than words. The stars outside glimmered endlessly, a reminder that the universe was vast, full of danger, yes, but also full of opportunity. And for Lyra and Cale, the journey was just beginning. They had found a guide, a protector, and perhaps finally, a real family. The next morning, the hum of the ship was like a heartbeat to Lyra and Cale. They awoke to the soft glow of navigation panels and the distant shimmer of stars outside. Captain Elias was already at the controls, eyes focused on the path ahead, but he glanced back at them with a gentle nod. "Today we begin proper training," he said. "You'll learn to survive, adapt, and think like explorers. The galaxy is unpredictable, but humans have a special strength. You'll see it in yourselves soon enough." Lyra and Kyle exchanged excited yet nervous glances. They had learned basic survival on the ship, but this felt different. This was about transforming fear into skill, weakness into confidence. The first exercise took place in the ship's small simulation room. Hollow panels lit up the space, creating a virtual environment of a dense alien forest. The siblings were tasked with navigating it, collecting resources, and avoiding dangerous creatures simulated by the system. Kyle hesitated at the edge. "What if I fail?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lyra took his hand. "We won't. We just try our best," that's what Elias said. Elias's voice echoed in the simulation room. "Remember, every decision matters. Observe first, think second, act third. Humans are strongest when we use our minds. Kyle took a deep breath and began moving, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Lyra followed, her sharp eyes noticing every detail, the shimmer of water on leaves, the shadow of a predator, the safest route between obstacles. Hours passed. They made mistakes, stumbled, and sometimes argued. But with every challenge, they learned something new. How to plan, how to adapt, how to remain calm under pressure. "You're improving faster than I expected," Elias said, watching from the control console. "Lyra, your instincts are sharp. Kale, your attention to detail is excellent. Together you complement each other. That's another human strength. Teamwork." The siblings beamed. For the first time, they felt proud, not because of food or small accomplishments, but because of their growing abilities. After the simulation, Elias brought them to the ship's observation deck. Beyond the glass, a nebula stretched across the horizon, swirling with colors neither had ever seen. "Out here," Elias said, "the galaxy can be dangerous, but it's also beautiful. Learning to navigate it is part skill, part courage, and part understanding who you are." Lyra leaned against the glass. "Do you think we can really survive alone someday?" Elias smiled. "I don't think you will. You already have the courage. You just need practice. And you have each other." The following days blended into weeks. The children learned to pilot small auxiliary ships, repair minor damages, ration supplies, and even decode alien signals. Elias taught them about alien cultures, the importance of empathy, and the power of human ingenuity. One afternoon, Elias set a new test. The ship entered an asteroid belt dense with moving rocks and unpredictable energy fields. He turned to them, serious. "Today you make decisions. I will not guide you. You will plan our path through. Lyra, Kale, are you ready?" The siblings nodded, hearts racing. Lyra took the lead, eyes scanning patterns, calculating safe zones. Kale monitored energy, fluctuations, calling out warnings and adjustments. Together they navigated the belt with careful precision, avoiding collisions and maintaining course. Elias watched silently, pride swelling in his chest. Humans often relied on intellect over brute force, and these children, abandoned and small, were proving that same truth. "You did exceptionally well," he said when the craft cleared the belt. "See? You are capable. Never doubt yourselves." That night, Lyra and Kale lay on the ship's floor, exhausted, but exhilarated. "I can't believe we did that," Kale whispered. Lyra nodded. "We did. And it wasn't just luck. We planned. We thought we worked together." Elias entered the room quietly, carrying a tray of food. "Celebration is part of learning, too," he said, setting it down. The siblings laughed softly, grateful for the simple warmth of a meal shared with someone who cared. The quiet hum of the ship gave no warning when danger arrived. Lyra and Kale were in the observation deck, watching a swirling blue nebula when the alert system blared a warning. Red lights flashed, painting their faces with urgency. "Children, stay calm," Elias said, his voice steady, though his hands moved quickly across the controls. "Hostile ships approaching. Saurian scouts. They're curious. And curiosity out here can be deadly." Lyra's heart pounded. She had never felt this kind of fear before. Not like the fear in Viridian 7 when their stepfather abandoned them. Not like the fear of wild creatures in the asteroid fields. This was bigger, faster, more real. Kyle clutched her hand, trembling. "Are we going to be okay?" Elias smiled gently. "Yes, because you've trained, and because we work together. Trust what you've learned." The Saurian scouts appeared on the radar, small, jagged ships, fast and agile. Their energy weapons glowed red as they approached, scanning for weaknesses. Elias piloted the craft through evasive maneuvers, twisting and dodging with expert precision. But this time he needed the children's help. "Lyra, Kyle," he said, "remember the asteroid field exercise? Think of this as a live version. Watch the paths, plan quickly, and call out changes." Lyra's fingers trembled over the console. "Okay," The first path looks clear, but an asteroid is drifting near the left. Move slightly right. Kyle monitored the energy signals, pointing out the scouts' positions. They're closing in on the rear. Divert now. Together they guided the craft through the cluster of floating debris, narrowly avoiding collisions. Sweat ran down Lyra's forehead as she concentrated, her training kicking in. Kale's sharp observations helped them anticipate each Saurian. Move. You're doing it, Elias said calmly. Stay focused. Remember teamwork. The scouts fired once, their weapons flashing through space. The craft shuddered, but Elias adjusted, spinning the ship in a way that shielded them. Lyra felt a thrill, not fear, but the rush of capability. She realized how much she had grown. Hours, or maybe minutes, it was hard to tell in the chaos, passed. The siblings called out every adjustment, every threat, every opportunity. Slowly the scouts lost interest, their ships moving back into the darkness of space. Lyra exhaled deeply, her body trembling from exhaustion and adrenaline. Kyle leaned against her shoulder, equally drained. We did it, he whispered. Elias turned, smiling. You did. I only guided you. The decisions were yours. The siblings felt a new sense of pride. This was different from any other success. They had faced real danger, not simulations, and had survived because of their courage, intelligence, and teamwork. That evening, the craft drifted silently past a glowing gas giant. The tension of the day slowly faded, replaced by quiet reflection. Lyra and Kale sat together looking out at the stars, still feeling the lingering adrenaline. Do you remember when Dravok left us? Lyra asked softly. I thought I would never feel safe again. Kyle nodded. But now, it's different. We can handle things together. Elias joined them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. You've learned something important today. Fear is not the enemy. It's how we respond to fear that shows who we are. Humans survive because we adapt, think, and act. That's what you did. Lyra smiled, a feeling of warmth spreading through her chest. She realized that being human wasn't a weakness as Dravok had made her feel. It was a strength, thinking, caring, adapting, and protecting those you love. Kale's eyes shone. Do you think we're really strong now? Elias chuckled softly. Stronger than you know. Stronger than I knew when I first met you. You faced danger and didn't give up. That's strength. That's human strength. Over the next few days, the siblings began practicing their new skills even more. They took turns piloting, learning the ship's systems and monitoring potential threats. Elias introduced basic combat simulations, teaching them how to anticipate attacks, avoid hazards, and use clever strategies rather than force alone. Lyra excelled at quick decisions, thinking on her feet and noticing subtle patterns. Kyle's analytical mind allowed him to predict moves before they happened, giving them an edge even against simulated opponents. Together they became a formidable pair, capable of handling challenges that would have terrified them just weeks before. 1. Evening as the ship glided past a ringed planet, Lyra whispered to Kale, Do you feel it? We're not just surviving anymore, we're growing. Kale nodded, eyes wide with wonder. We're learning to be more than just kids left behind. We're capable. And maybe a real family can be more than just blood. Elias, observing, quietly, felt a deep satisfaction. The children he had taken under his wing were transforming, showing resilience, intelligence, and courage, the very qualities that made humans remarkable. The stars outside sparkled endlessly, reminders of the vast unpredictable galaxy, and for Lyra and Kale the lesson was clear. Danger could come at any moment, but together with courage, intelligence, and trust, they could face anything. For the first time since Dravok abandoned them, the siblings felt something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. They were not just surviving, they were thriving, and they were learning that family, love, and courage were not gifts, but strengths they could nurture themselves. As the craft sailed silently through the cosmos, Lyra and Kale held hands, a bond strengthened by challenges, fear, and triumph. And somewhere in the control room, Captain Elias smiled, knowing the children were ready for whatever came next, and that the galaxy, vast and dangerous as it was, held promise for those willing to grow, learn, and face the stars together. The inn. Journey back to the colony felt different this time. When Lyra and Kale had first boarded Elias's craft, they had been frightened, small, and unsure of what their lives would become. Now as the ship glided smoothly toward the shining domes of Viridian 7, they sat tall, their eyes filled with quiet strength. Elias watched them from the pilot's chair. He said nothing at first, letting the silence speak for itself. He could see the change in them, not only in their confidence but in their eyes. They were no longer children lost in fear. They were survivors, thinkers, and partners in their own journey. As the colony grew larger in the viewing screen, Lyra whispered, "I didn't think I would ever come back here without fear. But now, it feels different." Kyle nodded, his hand gripping hers. "It feels like we're not returning as the same people. We're stronger." Elias smiled. "That's the truth of it. You've grown. You've faced danger, made choices, and learned to trust each other. That's more than many adults ever do. Remember this feeling, it will guide you." The craft landed smoothly in the docking bay. The familiar sounds of the colony, the echo of footsteps, the hum of machines, the murmur of distant voices, filled the air. Lyra and Kale exchanged a look, both remembering the pain of their stepfather leaving them here, of being abandoned without warning. This time, though, they did not feel abandoned. Elias walked beside them, steady and strong. They were not alone. When they stepped into the main square, colonists turned their heads. Some recognized the children, surprised to see them return healthier, taller, and calmer than before. Others noticed Elias at their side and nodded with respect. A woman approached them, curious. "These are the children Dravok left behind, aren't they? How are they still here after all this time?" Elias simply placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "Because they are human, and humans endure." The woman smiled gently and walked away, leaving Lyra with a warmth inside. For the first time, she felt proud of being recognized, not as a victim, but as someone who had survived. That evening, Elias took them to a quiet hill outside the colony domes. From there, the stars stretched endlessly across the black sky. The siblings sat close, the cool wind brushing their faces. "You've both come far," Elias said, "but this is only the beginning. Life will test you again, sometimes with challenges larger than today's, sometimes smaller but more painful. What matters is how you face them," Lyra asked softly. "Do you think we'll always be ready?" Elias thought for a moment before answering. "No one is always ready. But readiness isn't the point. Courage is. Courage means stepping forward, even when you feel unprepared. And you've already shown that you have it." Kyle stared at the stars, his mind racing with memories. "When Dravok left us, I thought it meant we weren't worth keeping. But now, I see that being human means we make our own worth, we build it." Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Exactly. You are not defined by who leaves you. You are defined by what you choose to become, and you too. You've chosen strength, kindness, and resilience." The siblings leaned against him, comforted by his words. In their hearts, they knew Elias was more than a guide. He had become what they had needed all along, a father. Not by blood, not by law, but by choice and by love. The following weeks at the colony passed quickly. Lyra and Kale adjusted to life with new eyes. Where they had once been overlooked, now they carried themselves with quiet confidence, and people noticed. They volunteered in small ways, helping fix broken tools, guiding younger children through studies, even sharing stories of their travels. Other children listened wide-eyed as Lyra described dodging Saurian scouts and navigating asteroid fields. Kale explained how he had tracked energy signals, making the ship's survival possible. They were no longer just the abandoned ones. They were respected. One evening, Lyra overheard two colonists speaking. "Thorin, they've changed," one said.